Alright, so we're here with game 2. This one is with Church. It'll come up on the screen shortly. Church, it costs 3 and it trashes. So soon it should come up. What is Church? No, I didn't click play. Help. Okay, now we've clicked play. There's Church. So +1 action, set aside up to 3 cards from your hand face down at the start of your next turn, put them into your hand, and then trash any card from your hand. It's quite a good card, especially on the opening. It effectively guarantees 5 on turn 4 if you draw it turn 3, which is very, very, very good. And you can trash any card from your hand, not just the ones you set aside. So there are a couple drawbacks with Church, of course, and one is it only trashes 1 card, it doesn't trash very quickly, and the other one is that it takes cards out of your hand, right? So obviously it prefers to have bigger hand size. But like I said, even on turn 3, 4 here, it's very, very, very good. The only unfortunate opening for me here, I do go for the Church and Young Witch option. I consider double Church as well to try to get the 5 for Butcher. Wasn't sure how to play this kingdom, honestly, because I was thinking Duchy Duke maybe, but you really have to sort out the Young Witch. The Oracle is not a great bane for it. You are limited in actions with just the Crossroads, so you really have to try to see how much you can trash with Church, and then see where you want to take your deck from there. So we both get Church turn 3, which is excellent. As a bonus, we get Bath points for doing nothing. My opponent went Church Silver as opposed to my Church Young Witch. I like Young Witch in general, and I think it was a good option here. The only bad thing would be is if my Young Witch drew into my Church. So we both get Butchers off our Churches, trashing estates, of course. All good news, all good news. Here, my opponent now picks up a Young Witch on turn 5, so I have to keep that in mind. Probably a second Church is coming in the near future. So here, I do decide to get a Crossroads. Church also works very nicely to pair cards together, and it doesn't say that on the card. But as you play with it, you realize, I could save actions that collide. I could save my Crossroads that comes without actions under the Church. You don't have to trash with Church, which is great too. So the Crossroads, while ordinarily not a good card, but even in this kind of deck, the Church does help deal with that. Helps to pair the Crossroads with the Terminal. So here, get a second Young Witch play in. My opponent went for another Church, and I considered Necromancer here. I like Necromancer. I'm convinced there's some combo with Necromancer we haven't found yet, but we will find one day. But I think Church is better than the Necromancer. Right now, I would just use it as a spy. That isn't as good as a Church, I think. And especially now that my opponent has a Young Witch, I need to keep on top of the trashing. Trashing is slow, like I said, with Church and Butcher, just one at a time. So we really need to make sure and stay on top of that. So just checking out the Bane here for whatever reason. And here we'll see the Crossroads draws. It draws Church, which is excellent. And here, what I could do, I could put aside 3 coppers, do nothing, right? Or I could put aside 2 coppers and instead do nothing. Instead, I thought about what was left in my hand, and what was left was the Young Witch and the Butcher. Right, and I wanted to play the Butcher. Now there are 6 cards left in this stack there, not 5. So there's a chance one of those could be bottom decked, or maybe the estate could be bottom decked. I do have another estate in there, so just to make sure that my Butcher has a target if I do see it, I save the estate. Turns out I didn't need to do any of that, but whatever, better safe than sorry. And I pick up a Caravan Guard. Like I said, an alternative play there was to store a bunch of coppers, have them on this turn, but I went for something slightly different. So here you see me saving the Young Witch for another turn. Here I get the Necromancer. The Spy is going to be better now, and the Apprentice as well. Alternatively, Zombie Mason I could trash with the Necromancer. So I feel like it's a decent time to pick up the Necromancer. An alternative there would be to turn the estate into a Caravan Guard. Also a reasonable choice. So my opponent trashed their Young Witch to pick up a second Butcher, but then rebought it on this turn 9 here. An interesting play. So I am ahead on the cursing at this point. I think I've managed to put 3 out of the 4 curses so far into my opponent's deck, and I'm very, very happy about that. Like I said, Church, will take its time to trash. Butcher doesn't really want to go trashing curses. You would much rather do that with the Church and trash the estates with the Butcher. Store my Young Witch to see with the Crossroads next shuffle. Pick up a gold, because we're going to need that to get to provinces. I think this will come down to provinces. It'll be much faster than the Duchy Duke thing. And this is another thing Church can do, and it doesn't say it on the card, but it sets things aside, so it isn't in your deck for the shuffle. So all 3 coppers, gone from your next shuffle. So you have a better chance of seeing cards that you want to see, right? Which is excellent, and that helps with pairing Crossroads. Already, just that alone, plus Church could just, okay, Crossroads, you're here alone, just come stay in the Church. Come stay. We have space, just come chill out until you find your Young Witch. It's excellent. So my opponent goes in on quite a few Caravan Guards here, which is good for them. Very good for them, especially with my Young Witch hovering menacingly. No trigger here, which is good for me. And we get to dump another curse in my opponent's deck. Church is just going to store those things out of the shuffle. And second Butcher for me seems good at this point. We are getting clean. We have 3 coppers and a curse left to trash out, but we'll get there. We will get there. Definitely. Down goes a curse. Here we want to find a Young Witch, ideally. I can even play my Necromancer as a Young Witch there, but I chose not to. The Necromancer is in the bin because my opponent put it there. I was thinking to do that. One turn, use the Apprentice on my Young Witch, and then use the Necromancer for Young Witch plays in subsequent turns, but my opponent made it easier for me. I could keep my Young Witch. I can even play double Young Witch on a turn if I want to, right? But I probably don't want to. There's no draw here, except for Crossroads. Which is currently a Necropolis in my hand, but whatever, it'll get better soon. Don't worry. So gold for my opponent. I'm looking to pick up at least another gold here before I go for province. They get a Caravan Guard trigger, which is good for them. And I'm going to discard my gold here because I know Church is at the bottom. I want to keep setting aside cards, keep removing it from the shuffle, right? So that I could pair things nicely and also make use of Church to trash. You need to keep on top of it, especially in a deck with no draw and where you want to play Butchers to potentially end the game, right? You want to see your Butchers at critical junctures in the deck. So the Young Witch comes out here. I'm going to get one more curse in this deck. Not great, but we can deal with it. It's just it'll take time is the issue. And another Caravan Guard for my opponent. So none of us have gone for provinces yet. I don't think the Duchy Duke thing is going to pan out with this style of deck. A play I considered here during the game is to turn something into a Feardom with Butcher and then Butcher that Feardom to get a huge injection of money. So you'll get 3 silvers from trashing the Feardom, plus you could Butcher the Feardom up into a gold. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. Great, so we go in for our first province here with just 2 gold. I kinda wanted 1 more, but I felt like, nah, look, my opponent, he has a lot of these Caravan Guards and he's getting a bit clean. Let me take advantage of the time that I gave myself by getting the Young Witch early and getting the curse in my opponent's deck. So I went for the province. It also makes my Crossroads draw at least a card, which I'll be very, very happy to do. My opponent follows me on the province here, right? So good. Now we're starting to play the end game here. So 1-1 for the provinces. Crossroads doesn't find any green. My opponent gets 1 Caravan Guard trigger. And I'm going to drop the gold here and play a couple Butchers. I will not turn any of my golds into provinces yet. I think I can get 1 more shuffle's use out of it. So I'm going to hold that gold, but use the coffers instead to pick up province 2. This is a bad hand, but is largely saved by the church, honestly. So what I'm going to do is nothing here, but set aside province, curse with the church. Could be curse, province. I went for the 2 green as opposed to the 2 purple because my crossroads is coming. My crossroads is in there somewhere. So another province for my opponent, and now we're at 2-2, and now we need to really stop and consider the situation, because you don't want to gift the game away over to your opponent. Your opponent has 2 butchers, you have 2 butchers. You have to put yourself in a completely winning position. You know your deck is a bit better, but you still have to convert it, right? Because your opponent can still have a freak draw and win, and then that doesn't feel good or look good at all. So my opponent does take his time here as is necessary in this situation, and he just sets aside a bunch of cards under his church here. I don't know what his hand is like, probably a reasonable thing to do. On my side, I have the 2 green cards coming in. My crossroads is here. And even if I didn't see the crossroads, I could see the necromancer, which is either spy or apprentice. And now is where the necromancer, the flexibility of the necromancer is going to come in. I can even trash one of my butchers to convert it to a province and then play my necromancer as a butcher. So I have options. I'm pretty happy I picked up that necromancer when I did. And just my opponent collect some coffers with the butcher here. So my play here now, like, I thought about it. I was like, okay, can my opponent take 3 provinces out of the pile? I calculated and I thought he could. And that would be bad for me if he was able to do that. So what should I do in this position? I could take 2 provinces. I could take 1. I could take none. I figured the winning play here was to use my butchers, right? So I'm going to convert 1 province into a province, convert my young witch into a province, and then buy a 3rd province. So that's effectively plus 12, but it only leaves 1 province for my opponent in the pile. And I don't think he could win in 1 turn if I make that play. So first thing is first, we're going to necromancer to draw everything, trashing the church, right? To draw up. I butcher the young witch. I don't want to play the young witch to trigger my opponent's caravan guards. So I get rid of that into a province and I buy the 3rd one, right? So now I'm at plus 14 with just 1 province left in the stack. There's very little my opponent could do. I don't think they can win at all, even given ideal draw from this situation. Plus 14 is just too much for them to deal with. Even if the trash occurs from church and butcher 1 gold into a province, butcher something else into a duchy, buy a next duchy, it's 13, that's not 14. So I felt pretty confident. And here now I just need to see either of my butchers or even the necromancer would be sufficient. I can play it as young witch, find the butchers. I don't find any of them. All of them are here. All I can do is buy a duchy, but fortunately, it is still enough because my opponent is unable to capitalize on my stall turn, and with the butcher and the province here, I have the game. So that was the end of game 2. Best 2 out of 3, right? So we move on to the next round. We did play the next game, but I won't show it. I just played it for fun. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.